In a week of peril is a glimmer of promise. Under the flag of their imprisoned leader, the proscribed Kurdish Workers' Party known as the PKK announced a ceasefire with Turkey after a 40-year campaign of armed insurgency. This is the picture of their leader calling on his movement to hand over their guns. Turkey has held Abdullah Öcalan for over a quarter of a century. But the organization he established to secure a Kurdish state and political autonomy continued to mount fatal attacks in a conflict Turkey say has cost the lives of 40,000 people.
Önümüzde 1000 yıllık kardeşliğimizin arasına örülen terör duvarının yıkılması hedefine giden yolda tarihi bir adım atma fırsatı vardır.
This was the most recent PKK attack last October on Turkey's state-owned arms company. For years, Turkish forces have hunted the PKK at home and abroad in the Kurdish regions of Iraq and Syria. The PKK are part of a wider Kurdish movement to establish a homeland and ethnic recognition in Turkey. Today's ceasefire arrives 10 years after the last agreement failed.
There's a lot of work to do. I think this obviously and cannot be a short process, but I think some of the possible pitfalls are the lack of willingness by some sections. But I also think it's very important to be cautious but also hopeful. Sometimes too much skepticism is also a block in itself in the process.
At the heart of that process is Syria, where the rise of the Islamic State group had made the PKK a useful line of defense. US forces fought alongside Kurdish groups like the YPG that included fighters from the PKK, despite the group being outlawed in the US and the UK. Both the US and the Assad regime enabled the PKK to be part of the autonomous Kurdish region of northern Syria, a future that is now precarious. With the fall of Assad, the Kurdish question in Syria is uncertain. And the return of this man means there is no promise of protection. And how significant is the Trump factor in all of this?
The idea that you can't rely on an American security backstop, I think is something that, you know, not just the Kurds, not just the region, but I think worldwide people are coming to adopt as a consensus position. I think the Kurds, like everybody else, are probably looking at DC and thinking, well, you know, if they'll leave the Ukrainians to the Russians, then what hope do we have?
In a world without American guarantees is a geopolitical storm that is forcing shifts between friends and enemies.